Hello and welcome to the Collecting Heroes podcast. I'm your host JD, the collector of collectors, and this is the place where I interview pop culture collectors from around the world. Today's been a bit of a funny day. I have a cat, and this is going into a bit of my personal life. I have a cat who unfortunately was sick and I had to go to the vets with, and it meant that I had to push back and delay the recording of this podcast by an hour. But I'm very happy to say that my guest that I'm having on today was very flexible and understanding. But it seems that cats are the theme of the day because his name is Francisco Ramirez. He is from Phoenix, Arizona, and he is actually a Catwoman collector. Francisco, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
And I nearly butchered the intro there. I'm going to edit it out, but I actually almost called you Robert, and I have no idea who Robert Ramirez is. But my brain has just been all over the place because of obviously being back and forth with the vets and stuff today. But once again, thank you very much for being flexible and understanding.
No problem. And actually, people like sometimes call me, which I don't get, like, but they call me Fernando, which I'm like, Francisco. There's a huge city, San Francisco, that you can reference. So
Yeah, of course, San Francisco. Yeah, of course. Yes, I didn't even make the connection there. That makes a lot of sense. But I'll try and get your name correct for the rest of the episode. So Francisco, again, thank you for being on the show. Catwoman collector. I've been following you since I went back and had a look. I've been following you since about May of last year, so more than a year. Before I actually asked you to be on the show. So I've been a fan of your page. I am obviously a Batman collector myself, as most people who follow the podcast know, and anyone who's seen my Instagram knows. And so as soon as I saw a Catwoman collector, I had to follow you. And you have a really awesome collection. The way I always start with this, I'm a Batman fan, you're a Catwoman fan. What was your story? What was your origin story as a collector and as a Catwoman fan? Where did that all come from?
Well, I mean, I would say that it's like two stories that kind of like intertwined.
Okay.
The first story, I would say, always growing up, I always believed that women were more powerful than men. And this pretty much like on games like video games, I would always pick the girl character because I mean I don't know, I just felt that to beat someone with like that has strength, you have to kind of like know and be very tactical when fighting.
Yeah.
Like if it's like a fighting game. Yeah. And so I've always really like always picked the woman character. And growing up in a Hispanic household, my parents never really said anything, but cousins and just like family members, a boy doesn't collect women toys or like women action figures because that's for a girl. And so I grew up with that mentality. And so every time that I would go to the store, I would kind of like try to throw in an action figure, like a woman action figure. And like I said, my parents never said anything, but it was just more of a subconscious thing. And it wasn't until the Batman Returns movie that I had my awakening, and I was like, wow, like Michelle Pfeiffer was just amazing as Catwoman in that movie. So I think it was that I knew that I was going to start collecting Catwoman.
Well, I don't think anyone would argue saying that Michelle Pfeiffer was amazing as Catwoman in Batman Returns. Especially me. I am a massive Michael Keaton Batman fan. You know, that is from my childhood, going and watching those in the cinema. And seeing Michelle Pfeiffer, I was blown away as well. Just as an actress, she's a great actress. But playing that character, it's just been iconic. And now, more than 30 years on, it's still iconic as well.
Yes, I totally agree.
And so your collection started very early then. So it started back before 92 or around that time?
I would say like, I mean, when I say collection, I'm talking about like the McDonald's, like Batman, the series, Catwoman, and then the little like Batman Returns Catwoman. But it wasn't until I would say maybe 10 years ago that I decided to actually go full on and actually purchase more of the more expensive like action figures and statues. So I
Okay.
would say like an actual like collection, probably it's been like 10 years.
That's fair. That's fair. And you've amassed quite the collection in the 10 years, from what I've seen of your. I'll call it the cat cave. Um, so do you have a name for the collection room?
I don't have a name for the collection room because I collect Catwoman. My partner collects Robin. So I can't
Oh,
really call it just like the Catwoman room because like it technically wouldn't be just a Catwoman room.
I'm trying
But
to come up with names. The Gotham Gallery, something I don't know. What, maybe the Gotham Den. Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I like that.
Well, I mean, I obviously call my collection room the Bat Cave, being a Batman
Yeah,
fan. But I affectionately refer to them as fan caves, as well, because so many different people collect and so many different types of collectors. But that's really
yeah,
cool to know that your partner also collects Robin. Just
yeah.
briefly tell me a little bit about, was the collection thing something that you guys fell in love to together, or how does that work? Like, was he a collector before he met you, or during his time with you?
He did. He actually did collect Robin before we met. His nickname was the Wonder Boy or whatever, like Robin is called.
Okay. Boy Wonder.
And yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, so that's what he was called that as a nickname. And so he had his collection, and so I sort of like merged my collection with his.
Okay, nice. And do you know roughly how many Catwoman pieces you're up to right now? And I'll actually ask this as a bit of it, like, we'll talk about this afterwards, but I know that you don't necessarily buy one of most items.
Yeah,
You're someone who tends to buy duplicates of everything. But
I do.
the things that you got on display, how many would you say that you've got on display?
So I try to take a picture of just the item, and I try to do just the one picture of the one item. And I
Hmm.
believe in my on my profile it says like over 500, and I know that I haven't taken pictures of other things, so I'm guessing probably like maybe 600 things.
Wow, wow, that's a pretty impressive collection. I know my own collection. I remember telling someone once that it was over 300 items, but I think I'm probably getting closer to that 400 or 500 mark as well. And I know how much space that can take up. With as I mentioned, so you got about 600 potentially on
Mhm.
display, but you tend to buy
But I
duplicates
also
of
have the
everything.
doubles.
Yeah. So is that a hard and fast rule for most items, or it's just anything you can get from the store? But obviously, because I know that if you've got grail items or older items, it can be harder to
Yeah.
source, and sometimes you can be paying a premium. So how do you get around that when you're trying to collect two of everything?
So, like you said, most of the time I'm paying that premium amount for those Grail items.
Yeah.
I kind of like started to do for the statues just the one statue because I
Hmm.
mean technically like it's in a box, you're not gonna really see it. So for the most part, I would say like statues I have one of, but anything other than a statue, it's probably two of them. And yeah, I have to like end up like sometimes looking for them on either eBay, Mercari,
Hmm.
or any of those websites.
Okay. Okay. And it must take up a lot of storage space.
It
How
does.
do you go about the storage? Because I'm imagining that stuff that's on display. Are you someone who keeps the boxes for those as well?
Yeah. So I always thought that like in my head that it made sense, but now that I like that I'm looking at the room, I'm like maybe it doesn't really make sense, and I understand why people only collect one. I just thought that it would be really interesting to kind of have like the action figure in front of the packaging to kind of
Uh-huh.
like see the packaging and also the action figure or the whatever that's like the little toy. So I thought that it would look really interesting, and so I do that so that the whoever goes to the room, they're able to see like the packaging and also the action figure toy.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, in some cases, especially some of those older figures and things, the packaging was really cool.
Yeah.
You can get a bit of bland packaging in some cases. I think the McFarlane's toys, while I like them, I find that in some cases the front packaging tends to be a bit bland
Yes.
on its own. I know that they usually sometimes have artwork on the back that if you were to turn the packaging around, it's got some cool artwork. Sometimes it reflects the character, but
And I
yeah, I
think for
think
the
that
most part, sorry.
yeah, that's okay. You go.
And I think also for the most part, there are a lot of action figures that come in different packaging. It's the same exact toy,
Hmm.
but they come in different action. I mean, especially like in the 90s, where you had like sets of toys where it's the same exact toy, but you have it
Hmm.
like with a Robin and with a Batman or with all of the Rogue Gallery. So because of that, I like the packaging. So yes, it's the same toy, and I could potentially just have it display, but it's not really showing all the other packagings, like the variants.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. There was actually an item when I was thinking about the duplicates when I was scrolling through your Instagram and looking through some of your older posts. I noticed one from a little while ago of the Swarovski
Yeah.
Catwoman, and I was just thinking because I literally only last night was looking at through Facebook Marketplace, and someone had the Batman version for sale
Okay.
for
Nice.
about I would say 30% less than what the retail was on it. And I
Okay.
was and I was looking at it and I was semi tempted, but obviously
Yeah.
the price is still quite. I think it was still over
Yeah.
$500 for that here in Australia. But is that something you doubled up on, or do you also have a bit of a rule in terms of finances? Like if it's more than $50 or $100, I'm not getting a duplicate of it.
So I think that now I'm more inclined to do something that has that has the clear packaging,
Yep.
and do that as a double. But if it's anything that has like a box, just like a normal box, because the Swarovski does only come with the box,
Yeah, of
so
course.
you wouldn't be able to really see what's inside. So I decided because of like the room situation,
Uh-huh.
or the space situation, that I'm only doing clear packaging.
Yeah, no, that
So
makes
the
sense.
Swarovski was just one.
Yeah, well, you did mention also with the statues as well, like not doing the statues, but I thought because that was a smaller one, whether or not you would have
Yeah.
doubled up on that. But yes, space is the enemy of collectors. Yeah, you'll hear me say
Yes.
it all the time on the podcast. Let's dial it back to a bit of the history of Catwoman. So I tend to sometimes, I try and do a bit of a dive into the history of the either the franchises or the characters that I'm talking to people of, and do a little bit of research. And it's always good because I love to learn new things myself. And
Yeah.
if I can learn things about characters that I've liked myself, it's great. And sometimes I'll do a pop quiz. I don't have a pop quiz for you today, so
Okay.
you're off
Perfect.
the hook there. But I just wanted to go through. So one of the things I noticed was the first appearance was in Batman #1, 1940, and at the time she was Selina Kyle, so she wasn't actually Catwoman in the first couple of issues that she came out. She was presented as a femme fatale, essentially just a romantic interest who was a burglar and jewel thief. So it wasn't until #3, I believe, is that she actually gets. Well, she
The
becomes the
horrible
cat.
mask.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
she becomes the cat, not Catwoman, but the cat, and she has literally what looks like a furry's like
Yeah.
with a cow with a cape off the back of it.
Yeah. Try stealing a diamond, whatever, with that costume.
Or actually, it's something. It also reminds me of like something that they might wear in that TV show if you've seen it, The Masked Singer. Something like
Oh,
they might
yes,
have on there
exactly.
as well. That's what it reminds me of. And I was like, yes, like imagine trying to get around in that thing. It looks so big. Do you have any items of the cat in your collection at all?
I don't. I don't. I also like to do a lot of custom items because
Yeah.
I feel like and I get it. I mean, if you have a toy manufacturing company, you're gonna want to make toys that encompass a bigger a bigger group of people, and I get
Of
that.
course. Of course.
But sometimes I feel like we don't get the items, or at least as a Catwoman collector, the items that I would want to. I mean, it's very rare to kind of like see an Eartha Kitt action
Yeah.
figure, and we got one from like McFarlane like just recently.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, like it's kind of like rare, and so no. So sometimes I try to make my own Catwoman, and so right now I'm trying to make. I'm not sure if you. I know I'm gonna like massacre the name of the company, but I want to say it's Mezco.
Oh yeah, I
They
know what
came
you're
out
talking
with
about.
toy.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think it's Mezco. It's the company that came out with those like 1970 action figures. I don't know if you know
Oh,
what I'm
like
talking about.
Migo.
Maybe it's
So
Mego. Yes, yes.
Migo. Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that's what they called, Migo.
And so we don't. I mean, I have like many figures of those. So I'm actually making a couple of those figures with like Barbies and like actually because I sew also. So
Oh, cool.
actually sewing like the costumes and everything.
Nice. So are you going to try and design your own the cat?
I'm yeah, hopefully.
Nice. I definitely want to see a photo of that. If you do, you have to make sure to you post a photo, or even just send me a photo because I'm really curious to see that. I think that someone should do an action figure of that, the original first version before she came Catwoman.
Yeah,
But
I think that
also
would be right.
the other thing that was sort of interesting to me as well was her history is pretty horrific when you
Yeah,
actually go back into the history of Selina Kyle as well. As a young girl, and a trigger warning for anyone listening. I'll try to keep this, as low key as possible. But her parents both die when she's young. Her mother first takes her life, and then her father dies from essentially drinking himself to death and takes it out on her. And then she goes through essentially being like I think in a foster system, and learning gymnastics, and then putting that all into to work as a thief. And so her road going through there, and then even the Frank Miller version, where she was essentially a dominatrix, but she had this controlling, abusive pimp.
yeah,
She's just her origin story in a lot of times is very traumatic. Even you look at the Michelle Pfeiffer, what happened to her, in order for her to
exactly.
become Catwoman. Is that I just like is that something that when you talk to other collectors or Catwoman people, do you guys tend to sort of go into that lore behind her? Is that something that's a conversation piece, or do you tend to sort of like steer away from the origins of her?
I think that well, I really think that I mean, same thing with like Batman. Something bad has to
Yeah,
happen for you to kind of like become that hero that you're sort of like wanting. And
yeah,
so I think that like I mean, you can't really talk about Catwoman without actually really talking about her origin story. And like you said, I
uh-huh.
mean, she has like multiple origin stories, and of course, like they're all pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's just kind of like what she did with it and
Yes.
where she's at, and how like she kind of like used what she knew to kind of be able to sort of like take care of her and also take care of like the other people.
Hmm.
Like I mean, she has like other people that she takes care of. She kind of takes that motherly sort of like role and kind of like takes care of other people that have also gone through traumatic moments or traumatic things.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to reflect on as her as a character is she's kind of like this Robin Hood almost,
Yeah,
Gotham City, like where she's stealing from the rich and using that money to give back to the people in the streets and
exactly.
everything. And that's I think that's really cool, and also just that whole female empowerment, the fact that she's didn't let those things destroy her. She used them and became a stronger person, and was able to yeah, like you said, transform that into good for other people as well. And so even though she's listed as a villain technically in Gotham, she's kind of that anti-hero at the same time.
Exactly.
And I mean, how bad of a villain can she be if Batman, and spoiler for anyone who doesn't know, but Batman goes and marries her eventually.
Yeah.
Because they obviously a few years back now they did have the comic arc where they actually got married, and she's been a romantic interest of him for so long that was almost bound to happen, I guess. In some points, someone was going to write that into the story somewhere, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then also kind of like piggybacking on what you were saying, I also feel like she's very human in how she's written, because I mean
Yes.
no human is completely good or completely bad. And so she's right in the middle. And so I mean you have like villains that are like just bad because they're bad, or you
Hmm.
have like Batman that's good because he's good. But
Hmm.
I mean being in that like kind of like human where like you do things for yourself but you also do things for somebody else is also
Hmm.
very important as well.
Yeah, that's correct. And the other thing is, she also has had a hard and fast rule, which Batman didn't start with, but uh, eventually adopted, where she won't kill. Right? Where
Yeah.
so she has always had that in her DNA as in her character, that she wouldn't kill people. It was only, I believe, there's a Earth 2 version, as I found when I was doing the research, who actually does kill people, um but otherwise, for the most part, she never kills. That's a hard and fast rule, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why she's never crossed that line that Batman also has as a line, right? So that
Exactly.
they can have an understanding there as well. Uh, so so many different versions, obviously, like so many different versions in comic book, through the history of there, as I was talking about, more than 80 years worth, and also now so many versions on the big screen, on TV and in cinema as well. So thinking about that, we've had is it Julie Newmar, um, Eartha Kitt, who was the other? I'm trying to think the other one. I
Lee
might be
Merriweather.
bugging. Lee Merriweather, yep. And then we've had Michelle Pfeiffer, we've had Anne Hathaway,
The
and
one we
we've
don't
had
speak about,
I
Haley.
was I was I was
Halle
about to say I actually jumped one there, but yes,
Berry.
we did. We have Halle Berry,
Yeah.
and obviously now uh,
Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz, and I'm forgetting the girl's name from Gotham. Do you remember her name?
I
Cameron something?
Yes, I don't like I could never really say her last name, but yeah, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure her first name's Cameron, I believe. So many different versions. Obviously, you mentioned falling in love with the Michelle Pfeiffer. Is Michelle Pfeiffer your favorite version, or do you have another favorite version of her from the
You
on-screen
see,
versions?
it's a little hard because I kind of feel like everybody that's played Catwoman, even I mean even Halle Berry, I feel like they've brought something to the character
Yeah.
that another actress didn't, and so it's kind of hard to say that I have a favorite one. I mean, I think that Michelle Pfeiffer, because of like her iconicness of
Yeah.
like of her like portraying Catwoman, and I think that's also like nostalgia. I
Uh huh.
mean, it was the first Catwoman that I fell in love with,
Uh huh.
but I mean, I also love Eartha Kitt. I mean, I love what I, what she stood for as an actress, and like how hard of a life she had. And I mean, I know
Mm,
it's not really like Catwoman; it's more of like the actress. But I still
yes.
love Eartha Kitt. Um, I mean, I think I just love all of them.
Would you be able to rate like a top three?
Probably.
If I had to force you into it, I'm going to force you into it. If you had to pick a top three, who would be your top three? And they don't have to be in any specific order, but if you picked the top three, what would they be?
Okay, so probably let's start with three. I would say three is probably Julie Newmar.
Nice.
Um, Also because of like what she sort of stood for as an actress or as a person. So
Hmm.
I would say Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt number two,
Hmm.
and Michelle Pfeiffer number one.
Nice. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So the 66 ones are really ring true with you as well. You obviously love
Yes.
those portrayal of them. Yeah. And those outfits are really cool. It was actually really cool to see Anne Hathaway's character. when she
It
portrayed
was.
Catwoman. It really looked like it was really, her outfit was harkening back to that original 66 version as well.
And a lot of people don't like her as Catwoman. I really do like her. I really did like the whole like goggles sort of kind of converting into like those like almost like ears.
Yeah.
Um so I thought that it was like kind of like pretty geniusly done. So yeah, so I agree as well. And it's funny because I went to a Comic-Con a couple of years ago. I want to say it was like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And they were auctioning one of the Catwoman like cat suits
Mm-hmm.
that was actually used in the show. And I was tempted, but it was like starting bid was like $7,000 or something like that.
Oh,
So I
ouch.
was like, yeah, probably not.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's definitely that's all, that could buy a whole collection for some people, really.
Exactly.
But I mean, also having that one amazing centerpiece of your collection would be great. Do you have a favorite Grail item that's in your collection?
I was actually, I sort of like manifested this question because I was thinking about it. I'm like, if they ask, what would I say? And I can't think of anything. Like, I mean, I think I probably do. I have a couple of prototypes. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what would be the item.
Okay. Okay. Do you prefer now, like if you were to take your collection in a certain way, would you be more towards the action figures or the statues?
Probably statues.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because when I first started with the collection, I said no statues, only action figures. And so it's sort of kind of like going that way where it's like more statues, less action figures. But yeah, I think that like I mean, you get some of these statues that are just gorgeous and that have like almost like the same likeness as the actress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, probably like statues. I do want, and I think I well, I'm not gonna say anything, but I know I'm gonna get it. It's that big life size of Anne Hathaway. I don't know if you've seen it. Usually, like if you go to like any movie theater or
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, they usually have that statue.
Okay, like an actual, like one of the what do you call them, like fiberglass style kind of statues?
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like it doesn't look like her, but I am gonna get one of those one of these days.
And how much do they average when you see
So
them?
when I first saw it, I think I want to say it was like around $4,000, and
Oof.
now with like everything being so expensive, I think it's like now hitting the $6,000 mark.
Wow, you almost should have bought that outfit at Comic Con.
Yeah, exactly. At least I could have said that like one of the actors that was Catwoman actually wore the outfit.
And what's actually, so let's go back to the convention thing you were talking about, because
Mhm.
I think it's always interesting, as collectors, when we can get out and get in amongst fellow collectors at conventions and places like that as well. What's the convention that you would tend to go to? Is there one in Phoenix that you tend to go to there? Because I know in some cases for certain characters and other people they might have specific groups or meetups as well.
Well, typically we do the San Diego Comic Con.
Okay, nice.
Um, yeah, so I mean, it's a couple of hours away from us, and so it's not like it's not as crazy as other. I mean, we've met people from like Brazil and people from like other parts of the world, so it's like really close to us. So typically we do that one, and
Okay.
then this we're actually doing New York Comic Con in a couple of months.
Oh, perfect, perfect. I've actually, and anyone who listens to the podcast knows that I keep, and eventually I'll get over it. But the fact that I had tickets to the 2020 Comic Con San Diego, and that trip unfortunately didn't happen
Oh
due to
no.
reasons that we know. But I do plan to one day get back and go to San Diego. And I was talking to my girlfriend about it because I was also thinking about New York, because New York
Okay.
is pretty iconic in terms of the US conventions. And I think she would much prefer, because the time of the year as well, obviously being San Diego, the amount of people, middle of the summer, I think she would prefer that we went to New York. So I'm kind of leaning towards 2025. I may end up at New York Comic Con. So I don't know yet. It's not locked in, but I definitely would love to get to that as well.
Well, this is our first time going, and we've met people that have gone to both of them. And like you said, a lot of them prefer the New York Comic Con, but because
Yeah.
we don't know anything better, like I mean, obviously, like that's the one that we typically go to. So we're excited. We're excited to see the difference. I mean, it's definitely going to be a difference because we also go to the one here in Phoenix, and it's nothing compared to like the San Diego Comic Con. So we're kind of excited to sort of see that comparison between New York and San Diego Comic Con. What I will say though is that it's not as bad as you would think. I mean, San Diego doesn't get hotter than like 80 degrees. I'm not sure. This is
Okay.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So,
So that'd be about. Oh, that's still high 20s. I think that's about close to 30 degrees here. I'm not sure.
okay. Well, it doesn't get hot, and you're
Okay.
next to the ocean, and so there's that ocean breeze. So yes, inside sometimes it can kind of get a little stuffy, but I mean it's not as bad as you would think.
Okay.
It's
All
not as
right.
bad as here in Phoenix. I mean, we get like weather here, and like I said, once again, like I don't have like the conversion, but we get weather here. Like I think we had a couple of 119-degree like Fahrenheit here
Well,
days, and so it definitely gets really hot in like here in Phoenix.
I mean, we did initially before we started recording. I asked if you were a Phoenix Suns fan, and obviously you don't name your basketball team the Suns unless.
Exactly.
I mean,
You
it's
know,
kind
and
of like
then
the
the
pits of hell
women's
almost from the heat.
exactly, and then the women's basketball team is the Mercury. So right
Yes.
there tells you that like it's hot here.
How many times have you been to San Diego Comic Con?
I want to say that it's been maybe 5, 6 years
Oh, nice. What's your
after
favorite
like
item that you picked up?
um. Well, I can tell you what was my favorite item that I didn't pick up, and I
Okay.
still regretted. It was this Luis Royo Catwoman. It was like it was an exclusive to that Comic Con, and I remember seeing it and being like, oh, $250 is kind of expensive for a statue because it's
Mm,
instead of I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but the
no.
typical one is black and then this one's purple.
Okay.
So I was like, I'll just probably buy it on like on eBay or maybe like at another convention.
Oh no, what does it
And
cost now?
I haven't seen it. And then it was
Oh,
like I think it was like last night, I believe, that I saw one for almost $700. And I'm like, I should have gotten the
ouch.
$250 one.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. That FOMO sometimes kicks in, but
Exactly.
then also sometimes where you are like, I don't want this right now, or this doesn't fit within my collection, and then all of a sudden, it's funny you talk about before how you weren't going to have statues in your collections, and we
Yeah,
kind of cross that line sometimes as collectors where we're like, oh, I'm not going to collect this thing, and then all of a sudden one of those things makes it to your collection. Next thing you got a whole shelf a version of those
exactly.
things. Or there, yeah, I don't like that item. I was the same way with Funko Pops once upon a time. The very first time I saw Funko Pops in the shop, I was like, eh, like
Yeah,
they didn't really do much for me. Like, and then I got one, and then I got another one. Like, and I got them as gifts. My first couple that I got really were gifts, and then I was like, oh, I picked up a certain one that I was like, oh, that's a cool one. Like, I actually like that version of Batman, so I picked up that version. And then I was like, well, I've got a few of them now. I might as well get some more of them. And then it just
yeah.
became a thing. Like, and now I've got like a couple hundred, or I think close to 300 just in Funko Pops.
Wow.
But that's including other characters like Joker and stuff as well.
And I
Um,
feel like they got better also. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna diss on the original Funkos,
uh-huh.
but as it progressed, I feel like they got better. Like, I mean, they got sort of like I don't know. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
like what other word to use than like better.
Yeah, no, they did have like, I mean, the earlier versions of Batman were very much the same sort of mold, just done in different colors and
Yeah.
things. whereas now they do have a bit more of an action pose to them and stuff. I mean, the way that Funko has gone as a company, it's been up and down in the last couple of years. Like in terms of like sometimes it's been good, sometimes it's been bad with things they produce, and then obviously they've had their own internal struggles. And I've spoken about this on a previous episode with collector Marisol that I had on about issues they had where they had to lay off people and stuff, and it's hard when they're trying to get to they're going past that $1 billion company status to keep things fresh, and so we do get a lot of repeats of certain things. But yes, definitely the early versions were very plain, and there's been a lot of really cool ones. I've kind of steered towards the NFT versions, the digital versions, only because they had specific characters that will never come out. Like in Batman, there's Azrael. That came out with the Batman Rebirth. There's a couple of different versions that they didn't have in other Funko forms, which I was like, I have to have those in my collection, and so I went and got them. And just recently, they actually did the Dark Knight, and they have a Selina Kyle one in there. Yeah, are you going to get a copy of that?
I saw it, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't get it. Like, I don't get what an NFT is, so I didn't really understand that whole concept. I wanted it. I knew that I wanted it, but I just didn't know what it was.
Fair enough. Well, if you get the way that it works with their NFT is that they actually have redeemables. You can actually get them as a physical version. So certain so they actually have certain NFTs they call redeemables, which if you get them, there's legendary, which are the redeemables. There's the Grail, obviously, which is a single version for each drop that they do. And then they have royalty, and the royalty one is always usually Freddy Funko as someone who's like connected to that character or that character, depending on what it is. So the first version was the royalty was Freddy Funko as Batman, and it was like the OG Batman.
Okay.
And this version of the Dark Knight NFTs that they did, there's the redeemable of Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne, both as they were when they met at the ball. So it's actually got her in the dress with the little mask, the little face mask on. Yeah, masquerade, correct? Yes. So it's the masquerade version of her and Bruce, and so you can actually get those in physical versions, but you need to actually either in a pack, you need to open it in a pack, or you need to buy off the marketplace the redeemable token or the redeemable to go for the token. So there's a whole thing. I won't go into more detail than that because explain all the steps and how to sign up or do it all. But there's lots of information you can find online. There's a YouTube channel called Gastelcast, and it's GASTLE. I'll put a link. Actually, they've got a series of videos where they tell people how to sign up and how to purchase the NFT Funko Pops. I'll put a link to their YouTube channel or that video in the description of this for anyone who's interested in checking it out. And if you've got any questions, Francisco, feel free to reach out and I can help you with that as well. But
perfect, thank you.
Yeah, because the way I found it is, especially with those at the moment, I think they're going for. I think the last time I saw the Selina Kyle ones, they're only going for about $40 USD online to buy them off them on the marketplace. And the redeemables, you can claim your redeemables after the 20th of September, I believe, as well for those. So depending on when this episode comes out, it will be not long. It may even actually, I think, because I'm just trying, because we're recording this a little bit ahead of time. I believe that's around the time that this episode will actually be dropping online. So, yeah, but you can actually, those tokens, even after the redemption time starts, you can actually purchase the tokens off online marketplace, or you wait to buy them off eBay later. But a lot of the time, the markup on these is huge. If you can get it for the $40, I'd recommend get it for the $40 up front.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was I'm gonna sound a little like dumb, but I thought it was kind of like the same thing as McFarlane did with like the digital like collection. I thought it was something like that, and that's why I was like, oh, I mean, do I really want something like that? But yeah, like I'm gonna check it out.
It doesn't sound dumb at all. I mean, look, there's, it can be confusing, and there is a lot of it is just like they are literally like card packs that are like just a digital version of like a collectible card. But they do have a collectible element where you can actually get the physical versions, which I think is really cool, and that's why I've kind of steered towards that. I still get a lot of the regular drops, but yeah, and I think I've spent enough time talking about the digital pops, but. I'm happy to help you with that, and
Perfect.
you can get, if you can get a hold of that Selina Kyle if you wanted it. Before we do wrap up, though, I just wanted to sort of go back and sort of talk a little bit more about your collection, specifically with your partner's collection. Are you guys fight, like you mentioned about the space? Do you guys fight for space a lot in the room, and has that collection spilled out into other parts of your house or apartment as well?
Well, I've always been with the mentality that you live with your collection, so you kind of like have it all over the house. He's more of the there's a specific place and time for you to collect. So it's in a room, but lately two displays kind of like spilled into the house. So they're in the house. One of them is in our bedroom. The other one is just like outside, not outside of the house, but just outside of the room. But yes, space is sacred pretty much. We've tried putting things on the wall, kind of works, kind of doesn't. But yes, we're always fighting. And the thing is that I mean, I'm pretty sure that as a collector, we pretty much, it's not just one thing that we collect multiple things of things.
Yes.
And so I have a collection of shoes, I have a collection of sunglasses, I have a collection of like all these different things. And so definitely like it's taking over.
Wow. I have a collection of shirts that I've collected over the years, and specifically I have many Batman shirts, and you can see right now I'm wearing a Joker, Jack Nicholson Joker shirt, which I only just recently got. But I also have, before I started getting Batman shirts wherever I saw them, I had tour shirts from a lot of bands because I played music when I was younger, and so I went to a lot of concerts. So I've got a lot of those tour shirts. So my T-shirt collection, I think at last count, was somewhere around the 70 T-shirts or so.
Oh wow!
So I get it where we do have like multiple collections within our homes. It's very easy to do. Well, Francisco, look, I've had a great time chatting with you. Thank you very much. I'll, as I said, you were very gracious to get on a bit later with me, and I know it's getting a bit into your night now. So thank you very much for talking to me. I've had a really great time talking to you. But before I let you go, I always get people to plug their socials. Where can people find you?
So it's Catwoman with 3 N's at the end and 10. Catwoman 10.
Okay, and numerical 10. Yep, I'll make sure to put the link in the description as well for people. But yeah, I definitely think people should go over and check out your collection, follow you there. If they, especially, it's almost like a little photographic repository of everything that's come out as Catwoman, just about, including the Halle Berry, which I know we don't talk about. But yeah,
but I thought that it would be like nice because while collecting things, I never really had a place to kind of like sort of reference to see what was out there. So I said, well, why don't I create that reference? So yes, so it's definitely a reference of everything that's Catwoman, specifically toys, statues, and stuff like that.
Nice. All right, well, again, thank you very much for being on the show. And I had a great time chatting to you. Hope you have a wonderful night.
Thank you, you too. Thank you so much.
Another one on the shelf for the collector of collectors, and a perfect addition, all puns intended. But hey, as you know, I'm not just collecting collectors now, but also ratings and reviews. So if you want to help the show, then that's a fantastic way to show your support. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to spending time with you again on the next episode.